Bless Tube, welcome back to Snickerdoodle Stitch. Or if it's your first time here, welcome, thanks for visiting. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. So I've got a lot of stuff to share with you this week. I've been busy stitching, busy prepping for Sampler September. Why do I always feel like that's a tongue twister? And I had some stuff I wanted to share after reading through my viewer comments and doing some responding. So first things first. Diane did win the Garon Stitchery gift certificate, and she confirmed for me that she did get that. So congratulations, Diane. And then I do still have Stitching Mends the Soul, which I was giving away. And Kathy 1869 was the winner, but I haven't heard back from Kathy. So Kathy, please get my snickerdoodlestitch@gmail.com in the description and send me your information so that I can send this out to you. A couple things from comments. So I had mentioned in one of my most recent videos about Fray Check, which I like to use. You just put a bead of it around the edge of your fabric. Sorry, got some allergies happening this week. Anyway, you put a bead of it around the edge of your fabric and it seals it so that they won't fray. And I don't usually use it if I'm stitching on Ada or if it's a smaller project that isn't going to be handled a lot. I just don't handle things in a way that they fray very much. But if it's a bigger project, something that is going to get handled a lot or in and out, in and out, in and out of a frame, then I generally will use Fray Check to seal the edges. And someone suggested Fray Block, which is another option. They said it doesn't get as stiff. I don't. Fray Check, it gets a tiny bit stiff, but you put such a thin bead of it that it's really just on the very edge of your fabric. It doesn't bother me. But they said that Fray Block, which is made by June Taylor, does not get stiff that way. So Fray Check, the advantage to Fray Check is that you can find it everywhere. I mean, even Walmart has it. I looked up, my local Walmart online says that they have it, and it's like $3.35 or something like that. So it's inexpensive. You can find it at Joann's, Michael's, Walmart, just, you know, lots of places will have Fray Check. The Fray Block is June Taylor, so I'm sure you can get it at Joann's. And maybe some other sewing shops, but I'm not thinking you're gonna find it at like Walmart. They probably only carry one kind. I do have another brand called Fray Stop, which I bought, I think, at Needlework Galleria last year, and I honestly have not tried it yet because I have this Fray Check bottle, which is about empty. I'll probably get one more piece out of it, and then I will give this Fray Stop a try. I do know it costs more. And the Fray Block did cost more as well, although I'm not sure how the size of the container compares. This is only slightly larger than the Fray Check, but Fray Stop, I think you're probably only going to find it at needlework stores. It specifically says safely prevents cross-stitch fabric from fraying. So Fray Check has been marketed to sewists for years, not just for cross stitch, whereas the Fray Stop is labeled and marketed for cross stitchers. So wanted to thank the commenter who left the tip about the Fray Block. I'll definitely give that a try. Another commenter, so I showed this a few videos ago. Well, they weren't in a bowl, but I had finished these two pieces several years ago, but they were framed together, and I cut them apart and made these little pillows. And I said I thought I remembered that the pattern was Leisure Arts, that I could picture it in my head, but I couldn't find it. And it does look like it's an out of print but available pattern. And one of my viewers sent me the name of it. So it was called I Need a Little Love. And in my head, I was picturing a blue cover. And obviously what I was remembering was the blue matting around the piece. So I hadn't matted mine that way, but mine was framed similarly before I tore it apart. So if anybody wanted that pattern, it is called I Needle Little Love. It's leaflet 438 from Leisure Arts. So, I think that was everything for my comments. One other product I wanted to share is a product called Retro Clean. It comes in a package like this. I bought this at one of my local quilt shops. They actually had some examples there. One of their customers had some vintage linens, like handkerchiefs, or they were smaller things, and she had either dipped part of one or she had a set of two, and she had cleaned one in this, and it was amazing. It really took that yellowishness that happens with age. Yellowishness, that's not a word, Kathleen. It had brightened up the piece and made it white again, and had removed stains. It really does live up to the hype on the package. It's not cheap. This package was $15, but you only use a couple tablespoons and a gallon of water, so it would last for several. I mean, I've done some full tablecloths in it. I like late 50s, early 60s tablecloths. I know my mom had a few that were wedding gifts. They were the ones that they were usually white, and they had kind of red and pink and blue flowers. Sometimes they had lemons or things on them. But this stuff is amazing at getting really old stains out, as well as brightening them up. And the reason I thought to mention it this week, I showed this, I don't know what you call this, dresser scarf, a few videos ago, or sometime recently. I bought it at a thrift store, and what I want to do is make an envelope project pouch and use this for the outer flap so that they will show this off. I don't really have anywhere to put any dresser scarves at this point. But I love these old, it's hand embroidered. I did chuckle because it is all tied in knots on the back. So they tied a knot every time they changed a color. But the stitching was very nice on it, and that's what I wanted to do. But on one side, because both ends are stitched the same way, I have this folded over double here. On one side, there was like a little stain, like right in here. And so I wanted to clean it in the Retro Clean to see if I could get that stain out. And it did. I can't even tell you at this point which side it was. I can't find it at all. It was also very badly stained in the middle. I didn't care about that when I bought it, because I'll be cutting it off like here and throwing the middle part away. But all of the stains except one came out in the middle, and the one that's left is very faint. Like if you did want to use it, I can't even find it now. It's not in the bright sunlight. It's faint enough that nobody would look and go, oh, why did they get that stain thing sitting on there, whatever. So, yeah, and then in addition to taking the stains out, I thought this was sort of an ecru natural kind of color. And after it soaked in the Retro Clean for a couple hours, I realized that it is in fact white, and it turned out really bright white. I mean, this is on white foam core, so you can see that it's pretty close to actually being white. So the product is called Retro Clean. I know you can buy it on Amazon. I remember looking at it on there. I think I was looking for reviews before I bought it from the quilt shop, but it doesn't damage the fabric. I mean, it's made for vintage pieces, and I haven't had any trouble with the colors running. And you know, I do a lot with bright colors and reds and things, and like I mentioned, I've done the 1950s 60s tablecloths, and I've had no colors run, nothing, no damage to the fabric at all. So definitely recommend that product. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what to do with this now. It keeps falling over. Now on to some finishes and stitching. So I did an FFO. I had shown this little sweater that I stitched so that I could use it to make needle minders for sweater weather. And let me see if I can get it to focus. There we go. That's maybe better. It always wants to focus on my face instead of whatever I'm holding. So I finished it by making a hexie like you do for English paper piecing. I just made this little plaid stuffed pillow with some rickrack around it, and I stitched this down. One thing I did learn, so I know that I want to do the hands-on design, a vintage stitch to hexie, which I also showed not too long ago. It was this pattern. And that's the same idea. You make the hexies. Now this one has some hexies pieced together before they're stitched down. But one thing I will be sure and do is use linen, not Lugana. So this is stitched on Lugana. And Lugana is a little bit heavier than linen. And I've done English paper piecing before, but always with quilting cotton, which is obviously very thin. It's a very lightweight fabric. It's easy. You actually stitch or glue this around a little lightweight cardstock piece that's in the hexie shape, and that's how you get it to have the edges all folded around to the back. And the Lugana was a little heavy, so it was a little fiddly. And the sides don't look as smooth as what I would really like, but I got a little Christmas pillow made with it, and now it was a good practice, like I said, so that when I go to do this pattern, I know that I'll want to use linen, not Lugana, because I tend to grab whichever I have in the count and color that I want to do, but I'll make sure and use linen. I don't think I would use Lugana to try and do the hexies. Not that you can't do it, just was a little bit fiddly. One more viewer tip. I had shown this pattern that I got, Earth Goddess, from Joan Elliott Designs. And when I opened it, I realized that it's extremely heavy with fractional stitches, so 1/4 and 3/4 stitches, as well as a ton of backstitch. And it's not my favorite thing to do. I know backstitch is probably the least favorite of most stitchers' stitch to do, and I'm also not a huge fan at this point of doing the fractional stitches. It just means I've got to have some great light. Maybe not do them as late at night as what I do a lot of my stitching. So I haven't written this off, but anyway, the viewer let me know that she's working on a Joan Elliott design that really doesn't have fractional stitches. So I was a little concerned that all of her designs might, and she assured me that that's not the case. So I won't discount her designs in the future, assuming that they'll have fractional stitches. So thank you for that info. Appreciate that. Now, what I stitched on this week, I grabbed Broderie à Paris, which is a Sue Hillis Designs pattern. It's this one. I started this back in the spring at Stitch North, which was my first retreat, and I was stitching the big piece up here, and you can see I've actually bought this in a clearance bin. It was even more than 30% off. The Stitching Post in Baltimore has a sale between Christmas and New Year's, and if I remember right, each day or each couple days the clearance bin got a bigger and bigger % off. So this pattern was extremely cheap, and I'm loving it. I am doing it in Gloriana Silk Tulip, and I'm doing it on white. So if you look at the pattern, there is actually white stitched in here as well as red. Like there's white in the middle of these little flowers here, and there's white in the middle of this. And since I'm doing mine on white, I'm only stitching the red. But I'm making pretty good progress on this. What I stitched this week, I stitched a big chunk of this top border. I stitched the O and the D right here, and this big pair of scissors, and then Broderie was I only had this R, I, and E. So from the R over I stitched along with this really heavy framing that's on it. I've decided I do want to stitch on this a little bit more. I think I'm going to stitch on it tonight, and then I'll set this on the side. But I want to keep this heavy frame to stitch. It actually comes way out over here on the pattern because there's another motif that's within that frame. That frame and this top border is sort of mindless stitching. It's a great retreat thing to do. So I think tonight I may work some more on this flower vine thing, or berries and vines goes all the way over. So I think I'm going to stitch on that. But this is stitched on 32 count white linen. I don't know, it's just a plain white. So it's supposed to be one of the pieces for my white and red wall that I want to do, that I have no pieces finished, but I have big plans, and this will be one piece. It's kind of small though, but having fun with that one. And the Gloriana silk is just a dream to work with. If you haven't tried silk, I definitely recommend giving it a try, especially for something like a single color piece. You know, sometimes if you're doing something like a sampler and it's got 15 colors, you may not want to buy 15 silks, because then you're looking at quite an investment. I mean, even if you bought dinky dyes, which are probably the cheapest, you're looking at like $5 a color. So 15 colors, it gets expensive fast. But this I'm able to do with 2 skeins of the Gloriana. So even though the Gloriana is a little pricey, it's I think about $8 a skein, I only needed 2 skeins to do this piece. So, and it feels so smooth gliding through. I always, when I do something in silk, then I'm like, oh, when I go back to regular floss. But so I worked on that piece, and then I did some more on my Madame Chantilly with the poppies, which is this piece, and I am stitching it with the French saying on the front as charted. I'm not doing, there is an English and an Italian conversion inside, and I'm stitching this on 28 count Fabrics by Stephanie Nantucket Sky, which looks very sky-like. And last time I was over about right here. Let me go the right direction. It's hard doing this backwards. I was over about right here. So all of these words this way, and the green grass, and then these 2 big poppies down here, I did all of that this week. But loving the, still loving the Nantucket Sky. It's a dream to work on. And apparently after I started working on this a while back, I did an order from Fabrics by Stephanie, which I completely forgot about, but I got an email today saying that it had been shipped. And then I did remember that I ordered some, and that she has like a 6 to 8 week lead time, so I had completely forgotten it. So I have 4 or 5 fabrics coming, which I have already paid for but forgot about. So one is this in 32 count, because I do like the, I like the way it looks like sky and clouds. It's just a great sky cloud looking fabric. And then I got a couple that I may want to do the Mirabilia Nightingale on, although all of the comments, all of the opinions seem to be the Banshee of the fabrics that I had selected before as possibilities. The Banshee was the best option, but now I'm gonna, when the Fabrics by Stephanie come, I know I have Circe and a couple other things that I'm pretty sure I picked out when I was looking for fabric for that. So I may have to compare Banshee and the few other ones and then decide which one I'm going to use. But I'm really happy with this. This one is probably going to get set aside now and may not get worked on again until after the first of the year, because I am doing samplers September, and then I'm really into my fall and holiday and winter stitching, which I love doing and will likely only do that. So that means I got picked up till next year. Same with this next one. This next one is Erica Michaels, The Beach is Calling. It is this one. I am doing it on the called for Fabrics by Stephanie, which is chocolate milk. I normally would not use brown, but it looked like sand. And last time I did this, I had barefoot, trolley, taffy, and I had part of Lighthouse done, and that was it. So I put on boardwalk, finished house, shells. That's going to be sandcastle, but the S and the A aren't on yet. And then I did the trolley and the compass and the anchor and rope over here. This one is a lot of fun to stitch on. It's the borders around the letters, and the letters are sort of mindless, and then there's these cute little motifs in here like the trolley and things. So I don't know when this one's going to get picked up again. It may get set aside along with the poppies one until it's warm again. Not that it's not still warm, but all right. The last thing that I worked on was I did some more on my Cricut collection, Bed and Bath 1, and I'm doing the piece up here at the top for my bathroom. And I finished that the huge white bathtub when I was at Stitch, New Jersey. It took me 2 retreats of stitching to stitch that huge white bathtub. But the bathtub was done. And I had the girl's head done. So I wanted to do some more work on this because I have 2 more retreats coming up, and there's another row of this tile that goes down here and some words and then a little bit more tile, if you can see it in there. So I wanted to get the books and things stitched far enough that this tile, the tile and words would be good retreat stitching. I did this tile at Stitching in the Wild, and this is on a big piece of fabric because what I plan to do is put it in a frame but put a clockwork down here so that this would actually be a clock for my bathroom. I did have to change one of the colors, so you'll see the light blue in the books, the one she's reading, and then there's one over here that's light blue. It was a dark blue and I had to replace it. It just wasn't showing up enough on this fabric. And this fabric is 28 count Lagoon Blue from Soie. It's not an over dyed or anything, but it is my favorite color. It matches my shirt. And I have for my bathroom, my plan is, so I've been working on changing out the colors in my bathroom. You can't really tell in here because the color is rolled up in this big ball, but this will become another jelly roll rug. So this is a jelly roll and it's made into these tubes, and then it will get sewn together and it will look like my rug, which I'm on now so I can't pick it up, but I showed it before, a rug that I had sewed. And then I've got this green fabric, which actually goes with the same line as this, which I'm going to use to put a border on a shower curtain. So that's my green happening there for my bathroom. So I'm anxious to get the girl in the bathtub done. All I really have left are those tiles at the bottom, the words, and then there's some bubbles that go up at the top of the tub. Those use a metallic or like iridescent looking floss, so that's going to be a little fiddly and will take a little bit longer, but won't be too bad. So my goal is still to try and get this finished this year. So this will likely get stitched on, I don't know if it will more this month. October is when I do have 2 retreats, so definitely by then it will get stitched on. And now I wanted to share, well, first something funny, and then my stitching plans for September. So September, I am going to do Sampler September. I am not normally a huge sampler stitcher. I looked and I think I've only done one, which was the Blackbird designs, and I can't remember the name of it, but I have it on the thumbnail for this video, a picture of it. And it was a lot of fun to stitch. And I do have other samplers in my stash, and I have one that I had started. And then the Sue Hillis, the red and white one that I showed earlier, that one probably would qualify as a sampler. I'm going to stitch on it some tonight, and then I probably won't stitch on it anymore this month. But I lost my train of thought. Oh, so anyway, a lot of these samplers are reproductions, and the reproductions of stitching that little girls did, and you'll see the age on there, and they'll be like 8, 9, 10. So I was going to show the stitching that I did when I was 9, which is pretty funny. This was it, and I still remember when I did this and who taught me to do this. So I was 9, and our babysitter at the time had a death in the family. And so an older couple that were friends of the family watched us in the morning when my mom worked that week. And to keep us busy, one of the things she did was she drew this sailboat on this piece of gingham. It was pinked. It's very frayed because it's old now. And then she drug out her floss and showed me how to do a back stitch. We've got some X's on here, like cross stitch X's, running stitch. So she taught me how to do a few stitches on this. Many years before she was showing me how to do this, she had been a Girl Scout leader. So I'm sure it was something she had done with her Girl Scouts. But I still have this, but it is horrible looking. I mean, it's all puckered down here in the waves. I don't even know what happened up here in the flag. It's kind of just a crumpled up mess. I think I was supposed to stitch on the X's, but it looks like I only went one direction. I got the X's under control a little better when I got to the boat, but yeah, so I laugh when I look at what I did when I was 9 compared to what some of these little girls were doing when they were 9. Now, granted, I was going to school. I wasn't learning this as something, you know, a life skill. This was more to entertain a little kid. And I wasn't going to be getting married in 5 or 6 years. So, yeah, I thought I would share that just to give everybody a laugh. But my sampler September, so I pulled a bunch of things that I want to work on. So one thing I want to work on, and I started this back at Stitch North, and it is Hands Across the Sea, Annie Bayliss, and it's the one that's God Save the Queen. And I had originally intended to do this for the Jubilee. I didn't get it done or started then. Then I thought I might finish it by the coronation. I didn't get that done. But my plan is you can get online, instead of stitching all this solid down here, you can stitch in, I think it's Queen Elizabeth's initials and, I don't know, years of her reign maybe. I don't know. It's her initials and some dates. I can't remember what they are now, but it's still in my Q-snap because it actually will be this small. So I'm about halfway done with it. So I have this larger alphabet done, and I'm into this smaller alphabet here, and then it gets even tinier. The smaller alphabet, and this is on 32 count weight linen as well. This smaller alphabet is 1/1. So there is actually quite a bit on this piece, which is 1/1. It's probably about half and half. 2/2 and 1/1. And I'm down into the 1/1 part now, but I want to work on this some more. And this one is also being stitched with Gloriana. It is Gloriana Poinsettia. And you know what? That just made me think. I don't think the Sue Hillis is Gloriana. I think it's Belle Soie. So I want to stitch on this month. And then I have several samplers kitted that I want to work on. So this one I have had kitted for quite some time. I was really anxious to work on it, and then I got completely distracted. But it's this Jardin Prive ABC de la Brodeuse, and hopefully I can get it to show up. It's a band sampler, and this over here is actually the whole, this side is the whole thing. So these two pieces, no, these two would be the end. And then she's got it on the one side, just showing all of it as one long band. So I have some linen band, which I bought at Galleria. It's got a really pretty lacy edge on it. You can see that. So I already have the fabric. Oh shoot. Hold please, I'll be right back. Sorry about that. All right. So anyway, the ABC de la Brodeuse, it is charted with DMC, and it is some very well, it's like 223 and 926, which makes me think of the Wedgwood Blue and Dusty Mauve that was popular in the late 80s. But on her website, like if you went to buy this pattern, if you look at the more details about the pattern or information about it, there is actually a sample that's done in some different flosses, and it does cite who did the conversion, but when I go to the link, it's no longer on their Facebook or Instagram or whatever it was, but it does have the floss numbers, and instead of the pinks, she's pulled in some reds, and one of the variegated, okay, that's awful, a couple of the variegated DMCs. So my plan is to do it with the colorway of the person who had, I'll just say brightened it up. So instead of the more subtle colors, it will be brighter. But I've had everything all kitted up to do this for a long time, and I don't remember what originally distracted me because I was ready to start it. I got this at a thrift shop. It's a very tiny scroll frame, but it will be perfect for the band sampler. It's just the right size, and that way I won't be getting Q-snap marks on it or anything. So since it is a sampler, it's just a band sampler, my plan is to finally start that this month. I love that piece. I do know EJ on Sunshine Stitchers has been stitching it. I've gotten a little behind on my floss tube. I got distracted with True Crime and a couple other things, so I haven't watched. I've gotten a little behind on floss tube, but so I don't know if she's shown it lately, but I do know that EJ has been stitching on that one, and I want to stitch it. And then I have a French Summer from Reflet de Soie. I don't know what this looks like. I can't really show that because it's just the pattern in here. I think it was originally a box that came like this, and then there were tissue envelopes in there, and it was a different envelope each week for the summer or something like that. I bought it much later. The summer was already over, so I did open it all, and it really looks like it's just a big alphabet with a border around it, but it's really yummy colors, and I saw somebody stitching on this. I think it might have been on Garon's Zoom meeting. I'm hoping I get to join that in a few weeks, and I'm gonna ask if there was somebody on there that was stitching this, because I saw somebody stitching it and I love the colors. These are my colors. And it was the colors that had me going and looking for it. So I have picked out a fabric. I'm gonna do it on, this is 36 count Roxy Flusco Dirty Porcelain. So it's a relatively big piece. A fat quarter wasn't going to be quite big enough on 36 count. So I was limited to the stock that I had in fat halves. And I did buy a half yard of this when I was at Stitch North. So the modeling is very subtle. I'm not sure it will show up no matter what I do here. Maybe you can see it a tiny bit now. It's very subtle, and that was what I liked about this fabric. I don't tend to like really dramatic modeling. I like the more subtle modeling. I did try this against some grays, but it was gonna get lost. It needed a warmer colored fabric for these colors to really pop on it. So that's how I settled on this. And it's too big for me to do on 40 count. I do have one piece kitted up that I may do on, or that I have kitted on 40 count that I'll show. This next one may not technically be a sampler, but it does have an alphabet, so I'm gonna call it a sampler. This one I bought at Galleria. This one was Mingiu Stitch, and it's called Serenity Room. And she had this done as a huge pillow on a big, like, it was blue and white or cream, like maybe 2-inch square kind of gingham looking fabric that it was stitched on. I can't find that same exact fabric, but I wanted to do something similar. So I have this blue and white stripe from Fabric Flare, and I'm pretty sure this came from Fat Quarter Shop. And I've picked out 311 as the blue that I'm going to use on it. So since it does have an alphabet, I'm calling that a sampler. If you are interested in this pattern, I recommend doing the search on like 123 Stitch. I may have mentioned before, when I try going to mingiustitch.com, I get some bizarre, yeah, it's a foreign adult entertainment flood of sites that comes in. So I don't know what is happening there. I tried it more recently and the same thing happened. I've double, triple, quadruple checked my spelling. It's correct. I don't know why that's happening. So I recommend just going to 123 Stitch to look for the pattern if you're interested. She has some beautiful patterns, but that's what I'm gonna work on. This next one may also not be called a sampler, but it's Blackbird Designs and it's Strawberry Fields Forever. It's been out for a while. And I have from Garon a Vicky Clayton silk conversion for it. These are just bobbin holders. They sell them in the quilt shops. So these are the colors, if you can imagine them. And I'm going to do it on 32 count Lakeside linen, and the color is navy bean. So it might be a little hard to imagine with the bright blue and green bobbin holders, but that's what it will look like. I think it's similar fabric to what they've used. It's maybe a little less, it may be a little lighter and a little less pink. They used, well, see, there says it's Confederate gray. It doesn't look gray here. And I pulled gray fabric and these did not look great on gray. So I'm gonna go with a more traditional So it's Lakeside Linen Navy Bean. I haven't used Lakeside before, so I have heard wonderful things about it, and I'm kind of excited to give it a try. The one LNS in Ocean City, Maryland is where I picked up some Lakeside linen. And then this last, I think this is my last sampler. Yeah. The last sampler I pulled as a possibility was Sarah Sparkle 1806, and this was a pattern that was done specifically. It's a Hobby House Press exclusive, so I got this when I was at Hobby House in Pittsford, New York, on my way up to Stitch North. And this is actually a tiny little piece. I am going to do it on 40 count, so I have some Auvert Soie for it, and it's small enough. It's only 7 by 8. There is some 1/1 in there, so that's going to be interesting. This will be my first time trying 40 count, but I decided that it was small enough, and with the silk, I can do I can use just one strand. They stitched it on 40 count. And these are the silks. It's not very many. Whoops, I'm missing one. I thought this looked like a little light. It's not very many, but they're very pretty. And I have picked out 40 count Fox and Rabbit flannel flower. So it does have a bit of a gray tint to it. Flannel flower is sort of a modeling that's pale creams and grays. So, wish me luck on the 40 count. I haven't cut my fabric yet for that. That's why it's still in the package, but I don't have many 40 counts in my stash because I've never stitched on 40 count before, so I haven't bought boatloads of it, but I'm gonna give it a try. So wish me luck. This last piece is not a sampler at all, and I'll explain why it got pulled. Oh, actually there is a sampler in here. So maybe toward the end of September. I don't have any floss pulled or anything for this, but Midnight Watch by Blackbird Designs is definitely a sampler style. And I pulled Fiber on a Whim Milk and Honey, which I love their Milk and Honey, and what's the other one? Cream and Sugar. I can take it out of the package. Their fabric I find easy to find, easy to stitch on, very consistent in the colors and modeling. So it's just a creamy modeled fabric. So this is 32 count. So I may work on that one toward the end of September, when I'm really jonesing to get started on my Halloween stitching. And then since I was looking in my Blackbird Design, I do have one little, the way I store my charts are usually by season, so maybe year round, you know, got all the Halloween together, all the Christmas and winter together. I have all my mice and cats together because I do have a lot of those. So, but then there's a few designers like Blackbird Design that I have all of the Blackbird Design together. And so I was digging in my Blackbird Design because I was like, I've got to have a sampler there. And actually when I dug through them, I didn't have a lot of samplers. I had maybe half a dozen, oh, maybe more, maybe 10 Blackbird Design patterns, but they weren't really samplers. It was like the Strawberry Fields, Long and Winding Road. I had that one, and then I had a few books, but I did have this Halloween one, which is definitely a sampler. So I grabbed that one. Oh, I did start pulling floss for it. I just don't have all of the flosses. They're kind of your typical Halloween colors, right? But then when I was digging in the Blackbird, I've got this Winds of Autumn book, And there are a few samplers in there, but they're of course not what I want to do. What I want to do are these two down here, the October 31st and this little owl. And so I did pull some stuff for them, although they're not samplers, so they may not get worked on until October. But for the owl, here he is bigger, I pulled Needle and Flax, 32 count Steinbeck, which is a darker, it's darker than the other ones that I was holding up before for the other pieces. And these are the flosses. I think I need to get one more floss for it. It didn't have a lot of flosses, but sorry, I know that glare is kind of bad, but there we go. That's not too bad. So I thought that was actually pretty close to what's in the picture. They used Weeks Dye Works Tin Roof. I think this will work, and I don't know, it's not, that kind of brown isn't a color I'm apt to be using a lot, so I may as well go ahead and use it for this. So that's 36 count. And it will come out about 4x5 on 36 count. Some of these I kind of laugh because like that will be 4x5. The Strawberry Fields Forever on 32 count was a lot smaller than what I expected. I don't, things in pictures just don't always look like the size you would expect. Like this thing is over 4 inches in diameter, and that's on 36 count. So I'm going to use that same Fox and Rabbit flannel flower that I pulled in the 40 count for the Hobby House press. And then I've got Gentle Arts Onyx pulled to stitch it in, which is like grays and blacks. The pattern calls for, oh, Gentle Arts Onyx. Okay, I actually had the called for. I wasn't gonna buy floss for this. I was just digging in my blacks, and apparently I did have the right one. So those aren't samplers, but since I was digging in my Blackbird design looking for samplers, I got distracted by those. And then the only last thing that I will stitch on in September, I need to do the next section of my Welcome to the North Pole. And I'm down to this row with the two little L's and the cocoa stand. I have the top 3 sections done, and I am determined to keep up with this and have this finished in November. Maybe even, well, yeah, it could be early November. Each section I'm finding takes me about 4 stitching days. So if I do a couple days this week and a couple days next week, it's usually done. And stitching days for me really just means the few hours in the evening when I'm watching TV and chilling out. So it's not a lot of hours to do each one, but it does mean I'm not stitching on something different. But it'll be nice to have this completely done in November. So that's my stitchy plans for the month of September. I'm going to dive into, like I said, Sampler September. I have a little bit more to do to get my stitching lined up for the 2 retreats that I'll have in October. I want to be sure and take some things that could be kind of mindless to that. Actually, this one I may take to one of the retreats because I'm okay with counting at a retreat, but I would rather not count and have to deal with changing colors. So single color, I'm good, but fill in and things like that, or things like the tile on that bathtub one where it's pretty mindless, you know, they're just little like 4x4 or 5x5 blocks. Definitely makes it easier when you're talking to people and stuff. Talking and things are more distracting than watching TV while I'm stitching, which is what I'm normally doing. But so that's my plans. I'm looking forward to see what everybody else is stitching, and thank you for visiting and sticking through to the end. And I am going to be going out of town the week after next, so I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have a special video either next Friday or the following Friday. Right now, my plan is to do my normal stitching and have a regular video next Friday, but I have a lot I got to get done to go out of town. So I may or may not get a lot of stitching done this week. I also have to work this weekend 2 days, so I don't get the long weekend to get a bunch of stitching in. But I will have something posted. My special video, I shot a video of my stitchy spot so you can see my setup and how I keep my stitching organized and have my lighting and everything good and everything right at hand. So I thought I would just share that quickly one of the Fridays when I'm not able to film and post a regular video. So everybody have a fantastic week, and I will see you all soon. Bye!